Hey there. I wouldn't really call this a light cast episode or anything else. It's more like I'm incredibly sleep deprived and just had some thoughts on my mind. And I think I'd be doing myself a disservice and my channel if I didn't expose a little bit more about myself, but for really, really useful reasons. One of the reasons that I'm making this is it's a lot that's been on my mind lately, just with everything that's been going on in the world, and I just keep thinking about some of my own experiences within the Zelda community and watching some of the people that I know, what they've gone through. So if I choke up at all during this, it is primarily because I think about these things. I'm a very emotional human being, despite what you see so often in my videos where I am very data-driven with my arguments, and actually quite an emotional human being. And I've been picked on a lot in my life because of it. I said to myself that if I got a hold of a bullhorn and anybody was willing to listen to me, that I would make sure to use it to speak up in the right moments. And I think this is a good moment, but it doesn't have to be a condemning and damning thing. What I'm referring to is the recent loss of Michaela Raines, of the Save the Fox rescue. And I was thinking about just like the bullying that I've seen, the type of bullying that she was going through, and then the type of bullying that I've seen in it's pretty much every fandom. I think like most people have internalized that and normalized it as a tax for being part of anything anymore. And to some degree, I think that's kind of fine, but it's also not, because it's like, as human beings, we're all messy, and sometimes people come wrapped in beautiful packaging who suck, and then sometimes you get people who look problematic, but they're actually just really beautiful human beings under the surface. I think to protect the innocent here too, I'm just going to use myself because I'm fine with it. I didn't create a channel on the hopes that, people would leave me alone potentially, so I don't mind it. Plus, I think a lot of the things that people have historically picked on me for are things I wear as armor these days. And Mother Nature gave me a lot of small but willing to bite the shit out of you energy, which sometimes doesn't always work in my favor. But anyway, I'm a goddamn disaster without ADHD meds, let me tell you. To tell a story, I think I want to really tell a different story at first here. So if you want to imagine me, and where I'm like every day, just imagine a koala in a tree. I love koalas. And I love them so much because they are basically like doing the best that they can with what Mother Nature gave them. And they're very instinctually driven creatures, and inevitably, like anytime I mention that I love them, somebody is always quick to be like, koalas are the stupidest animals on the entire planet. Koalas have the smallest brain to body. I don't know what the fuck it is. Anyway, it's the same thing that you it's like the Australian YouTuber starter kid is like talking shit about koalas for some goddamn reason. Anyway, I often use that as like a very good symbol for my own experience as a person on this planet who is neurodivergent. So imagine that you have this like little koala up in a tree, and like every day she wakes up and looks around and just writes down her observations in her notebook. And, not only that, but looks up at the stars sometimes and really admires like the view and the changing of the seasons and everything else that goes with it. But that's like her existence. And then sometimes you have people who are apex predators that look at the koala on the tree and go, I just want to fucking burn that tree to the ground, or I'm going to kill that animal. I wouldn't describe myself as an apex predator. I'm fairly certain most other people would not either. But I think that's a apt analogy. And I think that sometimes the nature of social systems, especially online, and the problem of it is that it makes some officers more inclined to be more predatory, and some of us are not. That doesn't excuse that behavior, of course. And just from what I've told you so far, there are going to be some people who are listening to this that are like making assumptions about it. One of those assumptions would be, what am I trying to portray myself as this like cute little animal sleeping up in a tree? And I'm not going to tell you how to feel about me. I think like everybody's interpretation of the world is real to them. But I think for neurodivergent people, what you see is what you really get more often than not. And I don't mean that as the experience of seeing people who are dealing with friction and sometimes poor communication. Because like, let me tell you, my interpersonal communication is horrible. My regular communication is also horrible. By the way, since I mentioned I'm sleep deprived. If you hear me mispronouncing words, it's because I have a huge struggle with speech and always have my entire life. It's another thing I've been bullied on a bunch. But I'm kind of like drawing this out to bring in a sort of point, I guess. You have people like me who are just like living this life, I guess, where we have this like rich inner worlds and this experience. And then sometimes when we make friends or have people come in and startle us or whatever, and we're just like, hey, I have this really cool information to share with you, and is utmost enthusiasm. And while I recognize that my own lack of understanding of social systems is such that can be considered as some kind of way, I also don't fucking care, because my own experience as a person on the planet, I know what my intentions are. And I think about the entire experience of being artistic and whatnot and what that feels like. So that's why I'm kind of going down this rabbit hole of explaining the personification of myself. Back to the point, I think you have this case where, like any good apex predator, you're going to become transfixed on a particular person, and it's like, no shit, that explains 99% of all human interaction. But it still doesn't excuse the fact that it's 2025 and we live in a modern world. I honestly can't even make that analogy anymore. Everything's going to hell really fast. But we don't live in the fucking jungle anymore. So, like, exhibiting a ton of predatory behavior in regular human interactions is really not appropriate or okay at all. And I just want to say that if you're, without even mentioning like anybody or any particular drama or anything behind the scene, if you feel like I'm talking to you, maybe take a look in the mirror and actually consider why you feel like I might be talking about you. And then please go to therapy. For everyone else in the entire Zelda community, go to therapy. Please. I mean that lovingly, not as a criticism. Please. Because you have people in this community who are like me, a lot of me's, who are neurodivergent and just trying to archive information and inevitably become targets for common manipulation tactics like DARVO. And in case you thought I was going to be just complaining and bringing up drama, we're going to do some educational shit as well. So DARVO is a common, very, very common set of tactics to essentially victim blame and to target people and get them to act out of sorts so that they can be like, look at how this person is treating me. That is like completely out of DARVO. That's what that is. And I think like most communities really struggle with this now. There are these personalities, and I get it, because like the internet is a haven for the misfits, and it should be like it. That's what the internet is, inherently punk when you think about it. But this is a problem, and it's an ongoing problem. I have, let's just say, I'm using myself here. These are things that have happened, but I'm just taking it as it happened to me. These didn't necessarily happen to me. Disclaimer, because everything needs nuance in 2025, in context. So I have been brigade reported. I have had comments that are directly targeted harassment of making me feel bad about times when I have either had public meltdowns or whatever in the past. I've experienced a lot of things like that. And, instead of like just being pissed off at the people who do those things, I actually like worked really hard at it, and like I've worked to build better skills of my own emotional regulation, because I am, autistic ADHD woman on this planet, and like, I don't know, I don't speak for all of us, but I know my emotional regulation starter kit was really terrible. And I learned to like have by reactions to these things or to like step away. And it takes time, it takes less skills building. However, it still does not excuse the behavior. All of these things don't excuse the behavior at all. Full stop. This continues across many communities. It's why I don't join a lot in loud discussions in places anymore, because it comes out over and over again. It is attacking the people who like to archive. It is the people of the in case you thought I was going to be nice to just the archivists such as myself. Like, hello, the whole entire criticism of News Alta fans is essentially just the same, like, early 2000s misogyny, like, wrapped up in the same fucking present. It is gatekeeping that isn't actually useful towards the preservation of the community as a broader concept at all. It is just trying to other the shit out of people. And it is, like, it's no longer popular to be misogynistic, though some people seem to turn that into a fucking art form. So now it's become something else entirely. Now it's become News Alta fans or this, that, or attacks on identity. I've seen so much of that. And fundamentally, it comes down to one of a few things usually. It is people who are just projecting their own insecurities by attacking others. It is, there are some transient hams that's going to happen in any fan base. You get people who don't realize that it's not for them because, every time that they play Zelda, they realize they want Elden Ring. And that's okay. That's totally fine. People are entitled to have those things, right? But when those combinations of behaviors and personalities show up into communities, they're largely being swept under the rug, those problematic behaviors. And this actually ends up resulting in the fact that communities end up harboring really toxic behaviors that they should otherwise be driving out and saying, like, hey, look, I love you as a person, but unless you're willing to, like, work on your shit, you can't be around me. You can't be in my community. It's as easy as that, really. I think, like, communities that harbor this stuff, sorry to be so inflammatory, but when communities sweep the shit under the rug, like, you're a bunch of fucking cowards. You don't stand for anything. It's as easy as that. It's in 2025, we have almost no oasis to hide from anything. And the least you could do if you have the wherewithal to start a fucking community is to actually keep toxic people out of it and tell them they aren't welcome at all. It's really simple. And then again, for a bunch of people who love a series about, the virtues of the Triforce or whatever, like, I'm not even going to go to the parallels of, like, what it is to harbor toxic behavior without any accountability. Like, the irony is amazing to me. So I wanted to, again, to talk about this problem that has been even worse in the Zelda fandom for a bit. And just taking on the situation with the Killer Rains and, to give the numerous people that are unnamed right now that are in our own community who are, probably really close to the edge of not making it, I think it's the only thing that I could possibly do with my little corner of YouTube is speak up about it in the hopes of preventing additional tragedies from happening. It's the least I could do. It's something that a person with courage would do.